What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Counting Wisdom podcast. I wanted to comment on Iran attacking Israel. One thing Jesus said is that there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. We don't know. What I was saying in my other podcast is that these signs are pointing to the soon return of Jesus. That's a fact. But we just don't know what all the signs point to as far as the timing of it all. My personal belief is that when Jesus said they will be buying and selling, planting and building, normal things are going to be going on in certain parts of the world all the way up until Jesus, raptures the church. And so, I think one thing that Iran attacking Israel shows is that, it has to do with prophecy. It has to do with the end times. I'm pretty sure in my Bible, and when I've studied Revelation, about 2/3 of Israel is going to be killed. That's 1/3 is going to be brought through the fire, and the 1/3 is going to be saved. And that's what I heard a Bible teacher saying, and I've studied that in the Bible. I can't remember the exact verse, and it doesn't say that in the book of Revelation per se. It does say that 144,000 are sealed in the book of Revelation, which means that there are millions of people. If you look at the population in Israel, I think there's about 1 million Jews, 1 million people that live in Israel. It's a small state, not a state, but it's a small country. And so 2/3 of Israel is going to be killed. That's what happens during the tribulation. But is the Iran striking Israel leading up to that? Where the next thing on the time frame is the tribulation. So the tribulation starts in Revelation chapter 6, and it goes all the way through till Revelation chapter 19. Most scholars believe that the tribulation is about 7 years. And so all those different events, all those different chapters are packed into about 7 years. And so, again, you can't know fully until you see specific things that happen in Revelation chapter 6. You can kind of time it out and see, certain things that have happened and say, oh, this is the same. Now, there is talk about Isaiah 17, where Damascus is a ruinous heap. And so there's also talk of Israel building a third temple. And so if Israel is destroyed, how can they build a third temple? And so the temple has to be built first, because the Antichrist sits in the temple of God, showing himself to be God. He pretends in front of everyone that he is God, and he does signs and wonders, and he does different miracles to convince people that he's God when he's not. And so Iran striking Israel doesn't have to do with the tribulation directly, but I think all these events are leading up to that tribulation. But I do believe Scripture talks about a pre-tribulation rapture. And so Revelation 3:10 talks about how God will preserve us from the time of testing if we are persevering. And so I think for people who did click on this, I know I only have a few different followers, but that's one thing that we have to realize, is that and I'm sure you have realized, is that we can see like, oh, we're in the COVID pandemic. And then many people during the COVID pandemic were asking, is this, is the rapture next week? Or, we're about to see the rapture. The whole world's going to go under right now. And that wasn't the case. Because again, Jesus said there will be buying and selling, planting and building, because he referenced it in the day of Noah. He said it's going to be similar to the day of Noah, where during Noah's time, he said they did not know until the flood came, all the way up until Noah entered the ark. So he built the ark, he got in the ark, and they still didn't know the flood was coming, all the way up until the rain started. And that's when, they were still buying and selling all the way up until Noah entered the ark. And so I think the same thing is going to happen as far as us entering the ark of heaven, the ark of the rapture, when Christians are taken into heaven. And I made a video about how Revelation 7, I think, is a reference to us in heaven, because it says that the angel asked John, who are these who are standing here with palm branches in their hand? And he says, these are they who came out of great tribulation. Some translations have different sayings in there, but I believe if you look at the KJV and the New King James Version, it says, these are they that came out of great tribulation, which I believe references an escape from the tribulation. And so that's something to note. If you were to actually just look at Revelation chapter 7 and you go towards the end of the page, end of the chapter, you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's true that some translators can translate it as came out of great tribulation, but I think it can also be translated as these are they that escaped from great tribulation. So anyway, not that we should be fearful of even going through the tribulation and being beheaded, because we are not to love our life so much that we shrink from death, because we know we're going to a heaven and a better place. But I just want to mention that I think the pre-tribulation rapture is biblical, and I highly recommend getting Perry Stone's Rapture Revelation. He goes through a lot of teaching talking about how it is biblical, and I don't think it's false teaching, because, if no one was ever raptured, it would be crazy. But we know the Bible talks about Enoch going into heaven. We know the Bible talks about Elijah going into heaven without dying. And so it's not too crazy when you think about it. And so going back to the main topic of this particular podcast is that Iran striking Israel, which I guess it takes a couple hours for the drones to reach Israel. I think it could escalate into a war, but as far as seeing war here in America, I highly doubt that. But I think Revelation chapter 6 does talk about a world war. And I think that once the stage is set where the whole world is going to go into a world war, that could be the time of the rapture. Now, if we even see a world war, I don't think it directly means that this is the time of the tribulation, just because there was already a World War I and World War II. And so even if there is a World War III so-called, it doesn't mean that it's the same war that's talked about in Revelation chapter 6. And so that's what I'm saying, is that a lot of the signs, they're just supposed to tell us that, hey, we should get ready. We should be ready. But as far as, pinpointing the timing of Christ, I think that is, something we can't find out. But I think we should do things to, prepare for that time. I mean, I liked the guy's video that I watched where he said, maybe you should buy some water bottles, extra water bottles. I know if we had warnings of the COVID pandemic, many of us would probably buy extra masks, or we would probably, buy extra food so we don't have to go out into society to get food. That's a practical thing. And so that's the same thing that I would say we should try to do. But I think ultimately, not going crazy, not, saying that, this is going to lead up to the tribulation and, the tribulation's next week. No. We still have to see how these things play out. And then, even then, I think Jesus is saying that he's coming like a thief in the night. And so even then, when we see many signs, I don't know if we could just say that, it's going to be, next week or something like that. And so, as we say in many of our videos, different ministers, is that, hey, let's just get ready now, put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ, and we'll see how these things play out. I don't recommend going to Israel right now. I've said that before. I know I just saw a guy's video, a teacher, that he was visiting Israel. I think the October 7th, as bad as they say it was, should give some indication like, hey, you should really not go to Israel during this time. And I've never heard of anyone traveling to Israel during a time of war, which is just crazy to me. But I'm not going to say that this person is dumb or anything, because, we all make mistakes. We all think something is right when it's not right or something. And so, not that he's a bad minister or anything, but just for anyone who, I don't know if anyone's listening to this and may be wanting to go to Israel, I just don't recommend it. And I don't recommend traveling near that area, and I think main media won't tell you that. I was listening to one of my radio stations, Christian radio, and they were taking a tour to Israel, and it's like, we just don't fully know when the bottom's going to drop out as far as entering into the tribulation, and so, again, the Bible does say that 2/3 of Israel will be killed, and 1/3 is going to be saved. I don't know if 1/3 is the 144,000. It gets kind of complicated, and, honestly, it's too much to even really pinpoint exactly a lot of different things. And so, anyway, hopefully this was helpful to someone. I highly recommend watching Bob Yandian's End Times teachings. You can find on his YouTube channel, Bob Yandian. And I think his are really accurate, really good. And so I do, again, recommend maybe storing up some food for just not necessarily a tribulation type of event, but just, we already know that we as Christians can see something like a pandemic, that literally we all went through that. Even though we were, hopefully many of you were safe and, had plenty of food. But I know that some people in America did experience some sort of shortage. I don't know if it killed them or anything like that, but it, I know many people died from 500,000 people died in America alone from COVID-19. And we don't know how all of them got infected or different things like that. Was it from, having to go out and get food when they should have waited a few more days or something? I don't know. And so it's always good to try to be just a little bit prepared for different things that are practical. But Jesus wants us to live for him and not try to, take matters into our own hands all the time. So anyway, thanks so much. Check out some other ministers, what they have to say. So I will talk to you on the next one.